1,000 Palestinians face one of the single biggest expulsion decisions since the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories began.
And the Oscar goes to No Other Land.
Thank you to the Academy for the award. About 2 months ago, I became a father, and my hope to my daughter that she will not have to live the same life I'm living now. No Other Land reflects the harsh reality that we have been enduring for decades.
Anyone who's familiar with the politics of Hollywood knows that Hollywood is the belly of the beast as far as Zionist ideology goes, which is exactly what made that win for Palestine at the Oscars such a watershed moment.
As we call on the world to take serious actions to stop the injustice and to stop the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people.
Because if it was up to the US and Israel, the only mention of Palestine and its indigenous people would be a reference to it in the past. And they can just pretend to honor Palestinians after they've already been kicked out. Kind of like what Hollywood does now with Native Americans.
We gather in celebration of the Oscars on the ancestral lands of the Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay our respects to indigenous communities here and around the world.
Performative empathy of Hollywood? Ugh. What the hell does that even mean? If you feel so bad, just give them the land back. But anyway, back to Palestine. If it was up to the US, all Palestinians would be absorbed by the neighboring countries, and then they can just do a song and dance honoring Palestinians. Kind of one of those. But they could never. Because the difference between the ethnic cleansing of the Native Americans and Palestinians is that the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians is being televised. And we are not going anywhere. And we're never going to let the word forget. You can kill 100 of us, 1,000, 100,000, but more of us will be there. And when I say we, I mean the Palestinians in the diaspora, right? And that spirit of Palestinians to stay and be seen for what they are as Palestinians is what explains that emotional reaction after that win. But of course, with the win came the reactions, the mixed reactions, particularly about the Israeli co-director also being awarded. And it's not just him being awarded, it's getting the airtime which he used to whitewash the complicity of everyday Israelis in Israel's crimes against Palestinians.
We made this film, Palestinians and Israelis, because together our voices are stronger.
No Other Land, a Palestinian film, won an Oscar, which is amazing, but I can't help but feel a little bit sad that we can't get our stories out there unless there's an Israeli to co-sign on it.
With all the love and respect to this Palestinian story, y'all, this is textbook normalization of Israel. The same normalization that Palestinians are actively fighting against and calling for the world to reject. Normalization is accepting Israel's right to exist as a colonizer and supporting the right of the settlers, the colonizers, to live on the land.
Now, two things can be true at once, right? On the one hand, we can celebrate the win for Palestine and the fact that Palestine was center stage, and words like apartheid and ethno-supremacy were mentioned.
There is a different path, a political solution without ethnic supremacy.
Now that's a big milestone, and that needs to be celebrated. And on the other hand, we can point out how sad it is that the talking points of the liberal Zionists had to creep into the speech.
We see each other, the atrocious destruction of Gaza and its people, which must end, the Israeli hostages brutally taken in the crime of October 7th, which must be freed.
And make no mistake, these were liberal Zionist talking points, because they distract from the occupation, which is the root of all the violence on the land. Yes, we can have peace and coexistence and blah, 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 but that only equates both sides and say, why can't we all just get along? When that's not the problem. The problem isn't that people aren't willing to get along. The problem, there's an injustice. Now, to be fair, that's not all what Yuval said. Yuval, the Israeli co-director. Because I love what he says about how unfair it is that he can go back to a normal life while Bassel, the Palestinian director, has to go to a life under military control.
When I look at Bassel, I see my brother, but we are unequal. We live in a regime where I am free, under civilian law, and Bassel is under military laws that destroy his life and he cannot control.
And he's been saying that for a year, because the film won the award at the Berlinale in February 2024. And he said the same thing about the injustice.
I want to say we are standing in front of you now. Me and Bassel are the same age. I am Israeli, Bassel is Palestinian. And in 2 days, we will go back to a land where we are not equal.
But back in Berlin, he didn't feel the need to add the liberal Zionist talking points, but we all need to get along, which was actually so jarring because in Berlin, when it was only a few months after October 7, he still didn't mention October 7. And now we're 16 months away from October 7, he felt the need to add that. And now, of course, October 7 is horrific. But October 7, like everything else that's disgusting that happens on that land, is a result of the ethno-supremacy and the subjugation of Palestinians, of the racism, basically. That one race gets to be on top of another. That's the root of everything. But back to the whole two things can be true at once, I do want to celebrate the fact that Palestine did get airtime. And that's something we need to recognize, while at the same time recognizing that that was possible because the film was co-directed by an Israeli. It wasn't just a purely Palestinian film. Like that brilliant documentary from 20 years ago called Janine Janine, which of course would not get stage time at the Oscars.
أنا راح أحكي إشي بس مش إشي عن الأمل والهاد بحكي للشعب الإسرائيلي سنعيش صقورا شامخين ونموت أسودا واقفين وهاي كل واحد إسرائيلي يحفظها ويعرف شو معناها.
That kind of unapologetic statement and pointing out what the real source of the pain is, which is Israel, without an Israeli saying it, would never get stage time at the Oscars. Maybe 50 years down the line when the world isn't what it is today. But today, that wouldn't be possible. But I do want to highlight that the film that won the Oscar, No Other Land, the film that we're talking about, did highlight the brutality of Israel. Like, I watched the film a couple of months back with my friends here at the cinema, and one of my friends, after leaving, he says, if you watch that film and you're still not radicalized in your support for Palestine, there's something wrong in you, because you can't, the film doesn't make Israel look good. That's not what we're saying. But it doesn't have a clear political point of view as to what is the cause. It's like, okay, Israelis come tear down the village and the Palestinian villagers rebuild. I'm personally not mad at the fact that there's an Israeli co-director and that's what helped the film, because this is reality. This is the world we live in. We can't go from point A to point Z in a heartbeat. Like, if point Z is the point where we speak for ourselves without needing an Israeli partner, yeah, but that we can't jump to that from having no voice at all. So for me, that kind of like compromise is, I can live with that. Now, I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me, but I'm not very mad at it. The real problem I had with the film is that from a filmmaking standpoint, storytelling standpoint, that film lacked a lot. Like, it was just the same thing on a loop, but we're going to get to that in a minute. For now, I still want to say more about this false dichotomy that people are discussing this Oscar win. That it's either something great for Palestine or it's bad because it's normalizing with Israel. I think it's both of those things. And I want to take a moment here to talk about the Israeli co-director Yuval. I mean, he can't help being privileged. You cannot fault people for being born into a circumstance that's better than someone else. It's what you do with that privilege, right? And for me, it's satisfying enough that he got a lot of Zionists pissed off. And when I say those Zionists that got pissed off, I'm talking about those vile Israeli apologists who make up stories, like shamelessly. Like, they made up a story that one of the guys that worked on the production was one of the people that got killed during October 7. And actually, the mother of that guy had to come forward and say, stop using my son's name. He did not work on the film. So the fact that those people got pissed off at Yuval tells me that Yuval is doing something right. But I completely understand why people are still pissed off, how he managed to slip in those Zionist talking points about peace and coexistence if we can only just get along. But psychologically speaking, I get why he would bring something like that up, because it makes everyone feel good. No one wants to feel discomfort, especially on a stage as big as that. You know, mommy and daddy are watching. And by mommy and daddy, that's literally your mom and dad, but everybody whose approval you're seeking is watching. This is the world's biggest stage. And this is not shade, by the way, because if you're a filmmaker or a storyteller, it doesn't get bigger than the Oscars. I mean, just look at how everybody reacts to being part of the Oscars. And if I were there, I would go crazy too if I won something like that, because you cannot deny the power. We all grow up absorbing American culture. Well, I shouldn't say all, but most of us who are in the entertainment industry, like, it doesn't get bigger than the Oscars. So if you're invited to that, you will feel compelled to say something that pleases everybody, because you know everyone you care about is watching. And in the case of Yuval, everybody that you grew up with, your Zionist society, is watching. So I'm sure he felt the need, he had to say something about October 7 and the Israelis and coexistence. And again, the problem with it wasn't very concrete. It wasn't that this ethno-supremacy is what's separating the people.
Can't you see that we are intertwined? That my people can be truly safe if Basel's people are truly free and safe. There is another way. It's not too late for life, for the living. There is no other way. Thank you.
But all that said, at the end of the day, the reality is No Other Land won an Oscar because there's an Israeli co-director who is kind of the hero in the story. He's fighting for the Palestinians. This is not to take away from any authentic empathy he feels for Palestinians, but it's more to point out the systemic problem that the world will only care about Palestinians if an Israeli is saying that message. And I know that sucks, but that's reality. And if you want to change reality, you need to accept reality as a starting point. I say this because a lot of us who are in support of Palestinian rights for self-determination, we tend to live in a bubble. And then we get shocked when we realize how differently people think about it. Because there are people out there in the world, like conservative American right-wing commentators who have nothing to do with Israel, that are commenting about this Oscar win. And they are upset about that speech, but for very different reasons. They think Palestine being awarded is because it's the right politics. As if caring about Palestinians' right to live in peace and be able to eat and drink and have their own homes not demolished, as if that's a woke talking point.
A movie called No Other Land won the Oscar for Best Documentary. It's apparently a movie about how Palestinians are supposedly oppressed or whatever.
This is what we're working with. This is the world that we're living in.
How Palestinians are supposedly oppressed or whatever.
Outside our bubble, there are people who don't give a fuck about Palestine. So the fact that Palestine got airtime on that stage, for me, that's an accomplishment. And then, of course, you have the completely unhinged, deranged Zionists reacting to this Oscar win, calling the speech Hamas terrorist talking points, or the insane projection from this one guy that Palestinians are getting awarded even though they've been recording themselves committing crimes. Where? Habibi, where? This is what Israeli soldiers have been doing. And the whole world is watching for the last 16 months. They're recording and posting it on TikTok, showing their faces, laughing at the crimes that they commit. That's all Israeli soldiers. There are no videos of Palestinians doing that, but they just make shit up. But that inversion of reality they do on purpose to distract you from the fact that this is a very racist society. I mean, just this week alone, there are Israelis that are being interviewed about how the humanitarian aid is getting cut off from Palestinians, and they're in support of that. And the only thing that factors to them as human beings are the hostages.
שמזמן היו צריכים להפסיק את הסיוע ההומניטרי, כי לא יכול להיות שאנחנו רק ניתן ולא נקבל. אבל כל דבר שיכול להביא את החטופים כמה שיותר מהר, הייתי מוותרת על הכל. חיים של אנשים מעבר להכל.
And there's literally a viral trend on TikTok of Israeli teenagers calling their parents, asking about if they would donate to feed Palestinian children from Gaza, and they all laugh.
שלום, מדברת שילת, אני מעמותת יד לתורם, אני רוצה לדעת אם את מעוניינת לתרום לילדים עזתים מהרצועה. לילדים עזתים? לילדים עזתים שחייבים... תלכי לטיפול, מאמי שלי, תלכי, צריכה טיפול דחוף, פסיכיאטר ברור לך, מותק.
And they're laughing at kids not being able to eat, without even considering that this power imbalance, where you get to decide how much water and food another population has, that might be the problem. And this inequality is why people get pissed off at liberal Zionist talking points that equate both sides. And why can't we just get along? You can't get along because there's this side that has its boot on your neck, deciding whether you can live or not. It's not about why can't we all just get along. That's why people get pissed off at this whitewashing that liberal Zionists do. And I don't know if it's fair to call Yuval a liberal Zionist, but there was definitely some liberal Zionist energy coming off in that speech.
Can't you see that we are intertwined?
This, why can't we all just get along, coming from an Israeli, it obfuscates the truth and makes people think, oh, but Israelis are good. Because that's what people in the West want to hear. They don't want to dwell too much on the problem. It's tell us that they will get along, so we can clap and go home. Now let's get to the real issue that I have with the film, is that narratively, it doesn't go anywhere. There's no narrative or character development. It's like Groundhog Day, the same sequence over and over again. The Israeli soldiers come, demolish the homes, and the Palestinians rebuild. And then it starts again. It's okay, that's horrific. And that part is well done. That sequence is very well told. But it's on a loop for 90 minutes. Nothing is changing. And one could argue that it bears repeating because it's repeating in real life, that the filmmakers are trying to show you that repetition, that relentless repetition. Because actually one of the most heartbreaking parts is when they come to demolish a school that they've built. And the little kids, they just pack their stuff up knowing, okay, well, I guess this is going to happen. They're going to tear our school down. That part makes your blood boil. So many scenes like that. And this violence really is on a loop. Because this week alone, as the film was getting an Oscar, the area in the film that's called Masafer Yatta is getting raided again by Israeli settlers. which is the subject of the film. It's still happening. But still, regardless of all of that, if you want to tell a story about the repetition, something in terms of character needs to change. Because a good film, like a good scene in a film, needs to end in a different place where it started. The character needs to change. Somebody needs to learn something. You can go backwards. You can devolve as a character. Things could get worse. But something needs to change. It cannot be the same thing over and over again. And there are many missed opportunities. Like, for example, Basil's dad, the Palestinian filmmaker. His dad, what a character. He embodies resilience in such an authentic, natural, organic way because he's always light and has a sense of humor about it, and he's such a lovable character. And clearly Basil grew up watching that dad and wants to live up to that, and he really admires his father. And his father got arrested throughout the history and gets arrested once in the film. And there was this one scene where he's telling the Israeli co-director that, I don't know if I have it in me to be like my dad. I was like, wow, that's such a thing that you could just go further down, like dig into the history of the father. They showed some old videotapes, but that the father character and the bond between him, the father and the son, that's beautiful to explore. Like, take us there. And the history of the dad and his activism for decades since he was a young man, and the passing of time is great, and that should have been explored even further. Another big missed opportunity is Yuval's life, the Israeli director, back home. Because what's very absurd and shocking about the film is that Yuval is arriving to the area where Basil lives and doing the activism, but then he gets in his car and goes back to Israel. That privilege, the fact that he can go back. And he mentions like going to his mother at some point. I was like, why don't you take us there? Let's go with you to Tel Aviv. Maybe you don't want to show us your mother. It's not about, you can decide what you show us, but the fact that your privilege allows you to go back home and he has to stay in this because the activism is Basil's life. But for Yuval, he can just dip in and get out. And that, take us with you. Let's go a day in Tel Aviv. Like, show us what life is like. What is that society that accepts that a few miles away, this is happening to its neighbors? And why are you so different from your family and friends who aren't doing this activism that you're doing? That's another great missed opportunity. And more on that, by the way, speaking also of the liberal Zionists and Israelis who are genuinely, I'm sure, in support of Palestinians, like the paper Haaretz. And one of the writers, Gideon Levy, I'm sure you know him. He's great. He writes great articles. But there was this one sequence where he comes to visit this disabled child, who's Basil's cousin. This boy was shot by the Israeli army, and his mother's taking care of him now. He's fully paralyzed. Israeli army is not even allowing the family to build a room for him that is safe and clean, that can take care of him. And he can't go anywhere to be hospitalized. So he's stuck just dying slowly. And one sequence in the film is when Gideon Levy and a team of photographers, cameramen come to document, to write about that story. And there is something in that sequence, it's similar to Yuval's story. It's like they can just come in, feel sorry for the Palestinians, take a couple of pictures and leave. And they genuinely feel sorry, but they just go back to that life that subjugates Palestinians. That sequence, I was like, whoa. Especially the cameraman who really felt with the mother of the disabled boy who's Basil's cousin. And then it's like, okay, bye. Just picked up his camera and left. That is at the heart of the problem. Because these Israelis who feel with Palestinians end up going back to that society, pay taxes, and live in that society that subjugates Palestinians. So at the end of the day, it does point to the fact that whether you are pro-Palestinian or not, just the fact that you are living a part of this Israeli society, you are, in one way or another, maybe supporting that. I don't know, just food for thought. But again, liberation is a process. And the fact that a lot of these pro-Palestinian Israelis are speaking up, I think for me, I think that's great. And that's part of the process.
So I'm watching No Other Land. It's a really good documentary. But something that just like strikes me, obviously like a lot of the stuff that the Israeli guy goes through as a Jew, like meeting people, I really identify with a lot of those experiences, the conversations I have with Palestinians. But it just like, it kind of irritates me that like it takes a Jewish person being attached to this documentary for it to get Oscar nod and Oscar attention. Because obviously there's been tons of documentaries about what happens in Palestine. But it's not until they have a Jew there. That's why, but it's why us speaking up is so important, guys. If you're Jewish and you're against the way Palestinians are treated, you have to speak up.
Ultimately, the real issue, the real problem, I want to emphasize this again, is this ethno-supremacist state that puts one race on top of another. That is the main problem. And that is what we need to keep talking about. How racist it is. And that is what was missing from the film. That real political point of view that this is the problem and this problem needs to be eradicated. The supremacy. The racial supremacy. And the fact that it doesn't point that out so clearly and so aggressively and unapologetically is why the film won the Oscar. Yes, it highlights the problem, but it never points to the real source of what is causing that problem. But actually, one of my favorite scenes in the film is when Basil and Yuval are driving. And this is early in the beginning of their relationship when Yuval entered and started the activism and really wants to help. Yuval is very frustrated that nothing is getting done. They're writing about what they're doing to solve the problem. And Basil is like, calm down. This is not going to get solved in 10 days. And there's a little misunderstanding in that scene where Yuval thinks that what Basil is saying is that you want this to be done in 10 days so you can leave us. But that's not what Basil was saying. Basil was just saying you need to be patient. You need to be okay with failure. You need to be more like a Palestinian, just resilient. And this speaks to the differences. What privilege does and what having no privilege, how that makes you tough and really resilient. I found that scene so beautiful. And also the misunderstanding of Yuval thinking, oh, you think I'm going to leave you after 10 days? Which actually speaks to maybe the guilt that someone like Yuval has.
تحس أنا بدي أروح كمان 10 أيام وين تروح؟ لا أنت مندفع على المواضيع زي إنك بدك تخلص الاحتلال.
And the reason that scene is great is because, again, it points to the problem, the racial hierarchy. But that was never clearly called out in the film, and that's the fundamental issue. But despite not pointing out the real problem and kind of like watering it down, the film's still struggling to have US distribution. Like one of the film's publicists, with the help of an independent booker, they have shown the film in several indie movie theaters across the US. They did that themselves. I mean, I was just watching this clip on Instagram of people in Austria coming out of a screening of the movie and talking about the effect the movie had on them. It's impossible to walk out of that film and not feel like, what the fuck is Israel doing? So I think if you show this film in cinemas, like a US distributor would be like, okay, there's no mistaking what's happening here.
I'm from Austria, and he's from Germany.
I'm from Germany.
So I'm from Mexico.
I'm from Italy.
I'm from Seattle.
I'm from France.
It made me really emotional, like the whole situation.
To be honest, it's just really too much for me at the moment.
Processing.
Yes, I'm still kind of in my head. I just got out a few minutes ago.
Not something that I wasn't aware before, but something that when you get to see it like on a longer version for 1 hour and a half, it's just extremely impactful.
Yeah, and it shows that basic human rights are mistreated.
Israel should respect some basic international law. That's for me like the basics.
So it's not really a surprise that the film doesn't have a US distributor yet. And despite what these deranged Zionists are saying that Hollywood is Hamas because of this win, it's not true. Hollywood is pretty much pro-Israel. We all know it. Or let's put it in another way. It's not that Hollywood is pro-Israel, it's more that Israel weaponizes Hollywood and pop culture the same way the US security apparatus weaponizes Hollywood and pop culture. I made a whole video about it, by the way. Check it out. Also, by the way, I just got funding from 2 funding sources here in the Netherlands to start developing a new theater show about Palestine, a new drag therapy theater show. Now, I know you're probably wondering, like, how are you going to make a fun drag show about Palestine? Honey, that's for me to know and for you to find out. It's that in denial sauce. And speaking of the in denial sauce, I want to finish off this video with a lip sync moment, where I took a speech from an amazing journalist called Chris Hedges speaking about the children of Gaza. He wrote a letter to the children of Gaza, and I lip synced to it and I placed it in the Oscars. And I want to highlight that this is a lip sync moment. The speech did not take place at the Oscars. This is a speech that was missing, maybe, from the Oscars.
Dear child, it is past midnight. I am flying at hundreds of miles an hour in the darkness, thousands of feet over the Atlantic Ocean. I am traveling to Egypt. I will go to the border of Gaza at Rafah. I go because of you. You have never been in a plane. You have never left Gaza. planes for you are terrifying. They circle above you. They drop missiles and bombs. The ground shakes. Buildings fall. The muffled calls for help from beneath the rubble. It does not stop. Night and day. Trapped under the piles of smashed concrete, your playmates, your schoolmates, gone in seconds. I am a reporter. It is my job to see this. You are a child. You should never see this. Under the broken concrete, you hold your breath. You cover your mouth with a cloth. You walk faster. Your neighborhood has become a graveyard. All that was familiar is gone. You stare in amazement. You wonder where you are. You are afraid. You cling to your mother or father. You cover your ears and wait for the blast. Why do they kill children? What did you do? Why can't anyone protect you? Will you be wounded? Will you lose a leg or an arm? Will you go blind or be in a wheelchair? Why were you born? Was it for something good? Or was it for this? Will you grow up? Will you be happy? What will it be like without your friends? Who will die next? Your mother? Your father? At night you lie in the dark on the cold cement floor. You do not know what is happening. There are flashes of light. There are waves of blast concussions. There are screams. It does not stop. Are these your last moments on earth? You drink salty, dirty water. It makes you very sick. Your stomach hurts. You are hungry. The bakeries are destroyed. There is no bread. You do not fly your kite, made from old newspapers. You have seen foreign reporters. We appear after a bombing or a shooting. We sit over a coffee for a long time and talk to the adults. Then we disappear. We do not usually interview children. But I have done interviews when groups of you crowded around us. Not this time. We cannot get in. We are locked out. Reporters from all over the world are going to the border crossing at Rafah. We are going because we have children, like you, precious, innocent, loved. We are going because we want you to live. I hope one day we will meet. You will be an adult. I will be an old man, although to you I am already very old. In my dream for you, I will find you free and safe and happy. No one will be trying to kill you. You will fly in airplanes filled with people, not bombs. You will not be trapped in a concentration camp. You will see the world. You will grow up and have children. You will become old. You will remember this suffering. But you will know it means you must help others who suffer. This is my hope, my prayer. We have failed you. This is the awful guilt we carry. We tried, but we did not try hard enough. We will go to Rafah, many of us, reporters. We will stand outside the border with Gaza and protest. We will write and film. This is what we do. It is not much, but it is something. You will tell your story again. Maybe it will be enough to earn the right to ask for your forgiveness. Thank you.